Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today's episode, I have with me a man that has the it factor, Jason Jordan. Jason, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Well, let's talk a little bit about who Jason Jordan is.
Okay.
Uber successful attorney, uber successful husband and father, right? Let's just get this out of the way because this is going to become important on some of the things I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
You have 9 children.
I do.
There is no one that has more personalities and things running around their house than you.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And we've talked a lot about your kids and going to school and how it's different in their generation versus our generation, so on and so forth. I'm going to start this out, though, with something a little bit different. I want to talk to you about things kind of outside the courtroom, but how you bring the courtroom to the outside, okay? So I want to start off with truth.
Okay.
I've been in trial before many times and raise my hand, tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, except I can't say this or that.
Right.
Tell me about what does truth mean to you as an attorney?
It's a great question. It's almost like, what does the justice system mean to you? It's rarely just, right? Truth, as an attorney, sometimes people, like, if you're a criminal defense lawyer, you hear people say, I don't want to know if you did it because
Right.
It doesn't mean anything to me. I couldn't be that person. That's why I couldn't do that work. I mean, God bless them. Somebody's doing it. It's not me. But for me, it's the only way that you can go into a courtroom and win a case, right? In an actual trial where you're going up against a multi-billion-dollar company, whether the jury knows it or not, right? You got an individual, but really there's an insurance company. I can't say it. You're still going up against a very large corporation or multi-billion-dollar insurance company. I've gone up against major corporations who they are in the defendant's chair. For the most part, I think people have a preconceived notion that we, the plaintiff lawyers, are some ambulance chaser, right? So you walk in the courtroom with the mentality of like, I know they're already looking at me like that. So if I don't come in with my best A game of just being totally upfront and brutally honest about everything, then they're going to see any little bit of that plays into their that bias, right? That they have. It's confirmation bias, right? They're going to go, it's one of those guys, right? You never want to be that person. So truth for me is just, if I got a problem in my case, I'm definitely going to be the first one telling the jury about it. That's just common sense too, right? I mean, you don't want the defense to be like, well, this is what he didn't tell you in their opening statement. But, it's tough because there's a lot of rules in the courtroom that the jury does not know about, right? They don't know about whether or not there's insurance. They don't know there's a cap on damages. So I actually had a case once in Denver where a woman was yelling at me in the hallway. The foreperson of the jury, she was yelling at me in the hallway because she thought she was helping my client by giving $4 million in non-economics. Now they gave a couple million in the physical impairment, and I got all the economics. But the judge, he wasn't supposed to. He told them after that it's capped. He has to reduce it, and she's screaming at me. I'm like, I'm not allowed to tell you that, lady. I didn't make these rules up. I know it's bullshit. So, going back to the truth, it's in the courtroom. It's sort of like justice itself. It's not always like what it seems. But as far as me personally, how I approach it is I just have to be open and honest about everything, about my case, about who my client is.
But how do you get justice if you can't tell the whole truth? Why shouldn't you be able to tell what the cap is? Why shouldn't you be able to tell there's insurance?
Right, because the honest, straight answer that nobody really wants to hear and may be boring, it's that the insurance companies control the legislature. That's it. They control the legislature. So they make these rules up. They make these laws up. Like we are one of, I believe, 8 states that still has a cap on wrongful death damages. Wyoming doesn't have. So if somebody killed me, you said I have 9 kids. Somebody killed me, T-bone, semi-truck, here's $571,000. And the cap used to be $436. It just got increased for the first time in 18 years or some shit. I think it may be a little bit less, maybe 16. So it's like Wyoming does better than, people think that, trial law and trial lawyers all liberal, like, states like California, they don't have any caps or whatever, as opposed to more conservative states. I mean, we're so, draconian in sort of like where we're at right now in Colorado. So yeah, why shouldn't you be able to? You should be able to, but the short answer truly is the judges are, they don't want to get overturned on appeal, right? And the rules are set, and it's very hard to get those rules changed.
So when we talk about truth, and we talk about like in a courtroom where you're not getting all the information, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a little bit about your truth right now. Why do you want to do this?
Do a podcast?
Yeah.
It's a good question because I think I enjoy people. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy communicating. It's my strength. I mean, I don't like to admit this probably to a wider audience than I probably should, but I haven't written a motion in probably a decade, right? I've got really good lawyers that do that, for me, right? That I pay handsomely, and we're very close and I trust them. I know where my strong point is, and it's in the courtroom, talking with jurors, talking with judges, pre-trial conference, going in there and establishing yourself in terms of being more of a leader in the courtroom. The questions you even ask in a pre-trial conference are oftentimes one of the most important parts of the trial, because the judge realizes, okay, this guy's tried a lot of cases. He knows what he's doing, right? So yeah, for me, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy communicating. I enjoy discussing, whether it's politics or whatever. I just, I'm a talker, and I'm good at it, I think,
You certainly are. And you're passionate. And that's what I want to talk about. So as you kind of transition into this part of your life that might have been a passion of yours for probably much longer than what you opened it up to be, right? You see a lot of people on TV. You see a lot of people on social media, whatever. Give me 3 people off the top of your head that you love to listen to.
It's a great question. Well, Michael Francis would be probably the top one. I've listened to so much.
It's like your brother.
Yeah, I've listened to so much of Michael. Some people ask him the same questions and the same stories, and it's like I feel like I've heard it 100 times sometimes. But he's fascinating to me, just absolutely fascinating. So I'd say probably Michael Francis. Who else? Obviously Rogan's podcast is fantastic to watch and to listen to some of the guests that he has on there. But, I enjoy listening to Jordan Peterson.
Okay, that's 3.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go back.
Okay.
What about Michael do you love?
Francis?
Yeah.
I think that he's as authentic and honest and brilliant at the same time. He was a former criminal. He owns it. He tells the story like it is. He's changed his life, and he's not, doesn't try to sugarcoat it, right? He tells it like it is. And I know enough about him and his history and his family's history, at least some of it, of the family, like Sonny, his dad. But what he did with the gasoline tax scam, and it's just fascinating to me. How much money he was pulling in, how he pulled that off. And then he comes out and he's he's got his wine business. He's crushing it again. The guy, you could have, if he did, like he wanted to go to medical school. If he went to medical school, it probably would have been a waste for him, because he's just a great businessman. He's incredibly intelligent and can make money out of anything, is what it sounds like. But I'm fascinated by that man. And I got to be honest with you, I also, just a side note, like I look at like Sammy DeBoer-Gravano and Michael Francis talking sometimes, and I think like our government put those guys in the hole for years in solitary. He was just stealing your money. Like Sammy, okay, he had some killings, but it was a job, dude. It wasn't like he's a serial killer, right? That was the life they chose. That was just pure retribution for embarrassing the government. And It's like, you talk about, 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, 23 hours a day in a cell block because they stole your gas tax. It's like, it's crazy. I know there was more to it than that.
Is that why you resonate with him?
I'm an East Coast Italian guy. I grew up around a lot of, that lifestyle, not too much. I was never involved in it or had anyone like close to me involved in it, but you always knew about it, growing up in New Jersey, in the 80s and especially in the 90s, it felt like, because after they took the commission trials, after they took down the bosses, right? Yeah, they were going after Gotti, but they had left the DeCavalcanti family alone for so long in New Jersey that they were thriving, because they really hadn't gotten a lot of attention, right? Well, then when they started putting the attention there, it was like every 6 months you'd see 50 like aldermen, city council member, all for bribery schemes and like labor union racketeering, and it'd be on the news and it's like all of them hiding their faces, walking out. And I grew up around that, but
why Jordan Peterson?
I just think he's okay. So a couple things about Jordan. One is I think he's a fascinating man. He's brilliant. He's obviously very well read, and he's a very, very brilliant man. But I love how the questions, they try to set him up in anywhere he goes, the questions they'll send at him. He's like a great expert on the stand. Can't box him in a corner. He's just so smart. He'll just be like, well, the premise to your question is wrong, and here's why. And he will explain why, and in a very thoughtful way that you would almost think he got the question beforehand, but he didn't. And I'm very so he's both very brilliant, but also, and very articulate, but he's also very quick on his feet. And he'll pause when he needs to, which like any good trial lawyer would. I try teaching that to trial lawyers all the time. You don't want to fill that silence and just say something, right? It's okay to kind of wait a second and think about it. But I think he's a very fascinating guy. And he's one of those that first came out saying some of this stuff that we see, this is wrong, right? And then they try to go after him. They're trying to take his license. I mean, it's appalling, really. I mean, they're showing their true colors, right? These people that are doing that to him. So he's also a very fascinating person to me. And I think brilliant, you know.
What about Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan's, I remember watching him on Fear Factor. Before that radio something TV show that he was on. I always thought he was a funny guy. And I don't know, he kind of reminds me of, first of all, he's very thoughtful. He has a lot of great guests on. He seems genuinely interested in the topics that he's discussing and wanting to learn more. And I find myself to be that kind of person where like, I don't want to go through life. What is the Animal House? Fat, dumb, and stupid is no, or fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. You know, like I want to get the most out of it, but I also want to, explore and learn more. And I think he puts a lot of really interesting guests on there, and he kind of shares that passion that I have in that way. But also he's just like a regular guy, who he's like authentic and tells it like it is. And he's not afraid to say who he is or what he believes. Like, you remember COVID, the whole ivermectin, horse dewormer shit. Like, he was thinking about suing CNN. I was like, good, do it, Joe. I was thinking, do it. I mean, it's just like, he stood up for himself, right? And there's a lot of people that are terrified of that mob that'll come at you and try to cancel you, et cetera. And to see like a regular Joe, no pun intended, like a regular guy get to where he is, I love those kind of stories.
Why do you think I ask you the top three?
Because you want to see who I associate myself with because that's what I'm going to be attracted to, right? Something that I'm
Do you see yourself a lot in all three of them?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. You like that edge?
Yeah.
That's Michael.
Yeah.
You love the knowledge?
Yeah.
That's Jordan. And then Joe's just cool. Everybody likes Joe. Joe cool, man.
That's right.
It's fascinating, right? Like, one of the things that I always talk about with a whole lot of people is whoever you associate yourself with is obviously who you're most likely to become if you're not already there, right? You'd be shocked. You may not. You probably won't be. But there's so many people that don't attach to anyone. And this is the state of the world that we're in today, right? It's all based on emotion. Talk about how truth and emotions are completely separate.
Well, okay. So truth and emotion. Yeah, obviously, man, I'm going to get myself in trouble with some of this. I mean, first of all, we are living in a world where emotion dictates everything. I'm offended. And it's like, it could be a true thing that was said, but you're offended, and it's like the emotion then takes over, right?
Right.
I always joke with people and I say, it doesn't work. I'm offended. You want to know why? Here, I'll show you why. Ready? You're offended. I'm offended that you're offended. Now you can't be offended anymore. Yeah, it's like, that's why we don't make decisions based on that. It's just childish. But unfortunately, when you look at social media, these fake lives that people portray themselves and these poor kids that are growing up with that, and they have this inner, they're all emotional, right? They're all dealing with that crap. And we're not teaching kids really things in school worth value anymore for a long time. So where does truth is just, it's one of those things now in our society where it's almost like up for debate. It's like it could be either or, just depending on what side you fall on with certain issues. Am I making sense to you?
Totally.
It's sad, but there is a truth, right? I mean, there's a truth to certain things. And, the emotional side of things that we see in our society today has become, problematic for society, but as a trial lawyer, it's also, I got to always have my, I got to be feeling that. I have to go in. I always tell people the best trial lawyers, they're not the guy that went to Harvard. Sometimes they are, that went to Harvard and is great at, reading the books and taking the tests. It's usually a guy with a high EQ who can read the room, right? And that feeling of that emotional, what's going on around you, right? And knowing when you want to back off, when you want to explore more into a topic or a person in jury selection, by way of example, or with an expert on the stand.
So this is where I want to go with this, right? So one of the things that gets interesting with that as you progress into this, kind of taking your life experiences as a trial lawyer into other people's logic, right? Like making sense of it all. That's a really interesting topic that you just brought up. You're reading the room, right? And
Right.
I've sat up there too, and I notice what people are wearing. I notice if what they're drinking. I notice a whole lot of things with that. Obviously, you've been in there way more than I do. It really truly takes an expert to understand body language and
Right.
what that person's doing. How does that transition over into, let's say, your personal life at home?
My wife, I think every trial lawyer's wife will, or husband, spouse will say, don't lawyer me. And it's like, I'm not lawyering you. I'm just fucking telling you what is logical and sensible, but
How's that work out for you?
not very well. No, that does not work out well at all.
Lost every case.
Yeah, I've lost every one of those cases, I believe. Yeah. I'm up on appeal on a couple, but no, I think it's, it's not, I don't think it necessarily changes me too much at home or how I look at things, because it's just who I am. It's like a natural thing for me to just have that. Like my son is, I think he's now 15. No, I think he's 15. He's 15. I think he was diagnosed with dyslexia, a number of years ago. But when he was in like second, third grade, he's very, very dyslexic, right? But he's a super smart guy. Like you ever read that, Malcolm Caldwell book, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't wish dyslexia on your kid, or would you, or something like that? That chapter in that book,
Right.
Super smart kid. But even in like third grade, he struggled so much. And I had a teacher once pull me aside and say, listen, he has the highest IQ or EQ out of any kid I've seen in third grade. I'm not worried about him at all. He's going to be very successful in life. And I was like, okay, that's kind of reminds me of someone else I know. So yeah, I think that, it's just natural, right? In terms of that. But for me in my own home life, with that, as many kids as I have, balancing the law firm and, a lot of other things I have going on in my life, it's, you got to be able to find some quiet, to be honest.
And manage personalities quick.
Right.
Manage personalities quick, because
Right.
they all can't have the same personality. Here's what's fun about you, though. While you've been, what we call it, uber successful in the world we live in today, top whatever, 0.0% or whatever, you didn't start with money, though. So who are you now? Are you still that guy that can't believe he's that successful?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually gave a speech a few weeks ago to a bunch of trial lawyers, and they asked me to speak on work-life balance, and because I have 9 kids and I'm able to do all this. And a friend of mine said to me, "So you're going to give a talk on something that you struggle every day with?" And I was like, "Yes, I am. Yeah, right. I do struggle. It's fucking hard. It's not easy, Sorry, what was your question? I just lost my train of
Well,
thought for a second.
it's you come from nothing
Oh yeah.
to
So
extremely
part
well.
of what I started out with my discussion was I was trying to get people to understand, like, living in the present, right? Time is going quickly, all right? Very, very quickly for all of us, right? It moves, like they say, time just flies by. Well, it does. And the older you get, the quicker you realize that, right? And I started out with this idea of, like, trial lawyers in general, and I think very successful people in general, they're very forward-thinking people, right? They don't dwell in the past too much. They're thinking forward, right? And you always hear about the saying, never forget where you came from. And I got to be honest, I did for a really long time. So to answer your question as to do I still sit there and think that, I don't think about it at all that much until I really focus on it, okay? And when I did, then I started to get that feeling back. So I was talking to a therapist and I said, I don't remember like the first 9 years of my life. I have like no memory of that. And she told me, she said, you're just forward thinking. Trust me, they're in there. If you sat and meditated on it, sure as shit, I could picture going through my house, my cousin next door, riding the bikes over to Mrs. Lasky, the old lady who would give us candy and shit. And I was like, it was coming back to me. I was like smiling, like I could like remember my childhood. I was like, what the hell? But coming full circle on your question is basically, I think the same thing that makes you successful or makes you a good trial lawyer in terms of just forward thinking. What's the next thing? Trial lawyers were trained, right? What do we do in our discovery? What information are we trying to get? What expert are we going to hire? What order do we want to call our witnesses? It's always future, right? So you're not really looking back. And then when I was trying to bring people to the present, you're probably not looking at the present very much. And I showed him a picture of me in New Jersey 10 years ago with my son, who was 5, taking him to Peyton and Eli's last game against each other. I was down the Jersey Shore where I grew up, and I took him to Jenkinson's Beach and the old Himalaya ride, and I got a picture of him and I. And then almost 10 years to the day, I was dropping him off at prep school. He's playing hockey out east. And I talked about, stress and just constant grind. I was like, you want to see what 10 years will do to you? And I put a picture, and then I did my picture of the recent one, right? 1, 2. And it was like, that's what 10 years did. So I look in the mirror sometimes and I'm like, holy shit, who is that old man looking back at me? But yeah, I think, I try now more, and I'm more cognizant of the fact of like being appreciative of the fact of like where I did start. And not only that, it makes me more appreciative, and I've always been appreciative, but it makes me more appreciative of my parents and how much they struggled to give me a better opportunity, to give me a chance to, get to another level, if you will. And it makes me appreciate it for sure.
Give me 2 of your biggest fears.
Outliving one of my children is probably one of them. Other than that, I mean, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of living too fast a life. That's a Stick Figure song. It's a lyric in a Stick Figure song. And it is so friggin' true. And I've been wrestling with that for a while. I really have. Like I just explained to you, the 10 years gone by so quick. And when you have kids, they say, I liken it to you play football in high school and you get an injury, right? And they say to you, you're going to feel that when you're older, right? You don't fucking know what they mean until you are older and you're like, God damn, this fucking thing is still bothering me. It's the same thing with when they tell you when you have kids, enjoy it now. They'll be out of the house before you know it. And it's like when I sold my house in Breckenridge and I went up there to take my skis out, and I took some other stuff, but just to get like a little bit of gear and some photographs. And I was crying like I couldn't believe it. I was just crying. And it wasn't because I was like, giving up this house. I mean, we weren't using it that much. And frankly, I can't stand Vail anymore. They just keep selling all these goddamn Epic passes. It's so overcrowded. It's like, I'd rather go travel somewhere else. It's ridiculous. And the town won't let me rent it. So I'm not even able to it's just stupid. But I sat down there and on the couch, my wife was ready to go in the car. Another friend of ours was helping us. I sat on the couch and I just started crying. And it wasn't because of the house. It was because of the memories. And the fact that I realized I had been holding on to that house. Dylan's hockey, we skied 3 days last year. That was it, 3 days. We're always on the road, right? That's also part of why we sent him off to prep school, is because it was killing everybody of traveling like that. But not using it so much, I feel like it all kind of came back to me where I was like, I was just holding on, hoping that I was going to be able to get those days back, not realizing they're gone.
They're gone.
They're not coming back. You remember playing trains and automobiles?
Oh, yeah.
They're eating a steak, and he goes, oh, I missed my daughter's recital today. And John Candy goes, yeah, you don't get those days back. It's just like
the truth.
Yes.
The truth.
Right. But I do. I think it goes so fast. Now I feel almost like having another set of kids. I have a new appreciation for that, and I'm approaching those children and how I handle my life a lot differently, knowing that like that blew my mind.
Yeah.
How fast they grew up. And my son's standing over me. He'll mess with me and come in like this, like I'm like, boy, I'll fucking choke slam you through a wall. And he goes, I know. I'm like, I don't know if I know. I'm like, you're
not sure
big.
I know this yet.
Right. It's going to be a real soon time or in a real quick period of time, you're going to be able to beat my ass.
Here's so I'm gonna tug on you a little bit here. So, because of your success, is there a fear inside you your kids won't be as successful as you are and have to live a different lifestyle?
Yeah, in many different ways. So as it relates to me in general, I grew up in Forked River. I'll show you a picture of my house, Forked River, New Jersey, this little house that my parents had. And ultimately, when I was almost 10, they moved to this town called Clinton, New Jersey, because it had blue ribbon schools and they wanted to give me a better opportunity. They couldn't afford it. Right. But they put us there. And when I got there, I saw what I considered rich kids, like for the first time, like, kids living in big ass houses and going to, Vail, Colorado from New Jersey on their Christmas for vacations to ski and shit. And I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, right? Like when I was playing football, I was trying, maybe not to injure you, but I was trying to hurt you. Like I played violent. I tried to, I always play with a chip on my shoulder. And I think there's something to be said about that. These kids clearly don't have a chip on their shoulder, right? But that's our job as parents to motivate them in some other way, right? And I think I've been very successful in doing that so far. I mean, there's a lot more to come that are going to have to get through that phase, right? But and some still need to prove themselves in that way. But yeah, that is definitely a concern for me. you grow up and you have all these, a house here, you're on vacation here, you're in Hawaii there. And it's like, you just think that's normal. Right. And it's like these people that come out of school thinking, college is like, I should be making $200,000 a year and working 3 hours a day. It's like, no, that's not, but I've had conversations with my kids. I'm like, you see dad at home and then here, and you have all this lifestyle. And I'm like, what you don't see and you don't remember because you were so young is dad working 17, 18-hour days. Yeah. Right. And just grinding for years to get to a point where I can do that and be able to, so I'm like trying to always remind them of like, this is like an illusion kind of for you, right? Because you're mixing what I did to get here with what you see now being what's, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's not like it's from a lot of hard work before that those kids don't remember. So I think I've done a pretty good job of motivating them. My oldest wants to go into early childhood education. And at first she wanted to do nursing, and then she wants to go into early childhood education. She's in college. She's a junior. And she's never coming back to Colorado. She's happy where she is in Tennessee. Right. But I told her, I was trying to give her an example. I said, we have 14.8% inflation, the highest in the country in Colorado. So you're going to come out, make $50,000 a year, right? And then the next year, that's the most money you ever made, because the next year it's worth literally that much less, right? It's how do you survive? How do you buy a house? And I've been explaining this to her, not to try to say, don't go down that road, but just to get her understanding. And she's not stupid. She's very smart.
Realistic.
Right. And then what really hit me, her boyfriend, who I love, his name's Zach. He's a PhD candidate.
We don't love him. We never love our daughter's boyfriend.
No, this guy's a PhD candidate in organic chemistry. He's a sweetheart of a guy.
So you like him a lot.
Yeah. And they're very much like, they're on the same page in life. But he came out to visit in Colorado and saw our house and, hung out with us for a few days. And then when we went to the lake house, they're in like Knoxville, and they came up and spent time with us, and he spent time in that house and the boat and that lifestyle and this and that. And then he told my girlfriend, he told my daughter, who she didn't tell me, she told my wife, and my wife told me that Zach's he's a little nervous about you. And I was like, because they're always like, you're so intimidating, Dad, you're scaring him. And I'm like, I'm not. What the fuck, And I'm like, which I don't understand this. I don't think I am.
No, I mean, you're like really mellow and easy and calm, like all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't get it.
But I think I'm a nice guy. So.
Plus your traps are huge. Your shoulders are way bigger than they should be. Dude, I mean, I get it. I get the guy.
But he basically told my daughter, he said, I'm afraid I'm never going to be able to give you the lifestyle that he has given you. So when I saw him again the next weekend, he was going back down for work and coming up on the weekends. I pulled him aside and I was like, hey man, just, make her happy and put food on the table and have a plan. And I'm good, and I think that meant a lot to him, but it kind of coming again full circle to what you were asking before about my kids and being concerned. Yeah, I'm concerned. And then I'm concerned about what the hell's going on in the world today, right? With inflation and the economy and the world war basically going on in all these different countries right now. I'm leaving kids behind to what?
Right.
It's terrifying.
A guy told me one time, he said, then obviously you have no faith because you were born at a time when there was something going on too and you made it. They'll make it. And they're designed for that. Right. So we just don't know it,
Right.
I'm going to ask you a question though. This was a hard one because I've been asking it myself and it's super freaking hard. Being a trial attorney, great. You have a set of skill set, read people well, know your stuff, know the business, know it all. When you transition over into doing podcasting or a show or something of that nature, why? Why do you feel your message is important?
Well, I think the message being important is not necessarily the primary concern. When you said you know everything about that, like trial law, I don't. I'm always learning, right? I always tell people like, I don't have all the answers. Maybe you can share something with me that'll make me go, hey, that's a good way of putting that, right? So I think it's a lot of, I know that I'm a big history buff. I read a lot and I study a lot in that way, and I have my whole life. And when it comes to like modern day events and politics, like I think you talk to kids today and even a lot of adults, they don't know what the fuck is going on. Right. They really don't know what's going on. They think they do. And they're willing to get up there and pound on the table and, do the old Khrushchev, right? Screaming their head off. And they probably don't know what that means, But I'm not insulting anybody, but I know that like I have a good knowledge base into those things. And I enjoy many different topics that I want to learn about as well. And I think that in and of itself it's interesting and helps other people. Like I said, I learn a lot from watching the people that I like to watch, but yeah, it's my message itself, or running a podcast, having one that's successful is important to me, because not of fame or anything like that. I just enjoy the actual banter and like getting people on that I'm like, I love talking with you, that.
And you don't
Even
do anything
friends-
half-ass.
No, not much. No,
There's not much half-ass.
no, it's pretty much full steam ahead.
It is full
So
steam
my
ahead.
wife tells me all the time.
It's full steam ahead. It's fun because, people call it the it factor. They call it, whatever else. I've even talked about it with you. And I mean, I'm being genuine here. There isn't a lot of people that can take in pretty much any topic and make logic and make sense out of it.
Right.
Now, obviously, I think that's a little bit of a lot of things with you. I think, again, where you grew up, how you grew up, and then getting into law school, doing all of that type of trial work. I mean, it really hones in your senses. And here's why I tell you I think your message is important. Because everybody is really acting on emotion. And that most emotion is not based on truth. It's based on a feeling. It's
Right.
based on a sensation, right? And without the truth, right, you can't make a good decision. That's all there is to it.
Right.
So where do you feel, how do you feel you're going to connect with these people that think more emotionally?
Right. So what you're talking, that's a real interesting question. I got to be honest, because what I find is you got these algorithms and shit online, right? And they're showing you confirmation bias, essentially. They're showing you what you already want to hear and what you already believe. So if you're going to try to get to that emotional person and get them thinking logically on something, a lot of them are already shut off and probably not seeing you anyway, right? But I think that, there's a societal shift going on right now where people are sick and tired of the cancel culture. You can't say this, you can't say that, right? And a lot of other things, to be honest. And I think that people are looking for a change, right? They're looking for a change. The old silent majority, comment, or what's that, Reagan, right? Mm-hmm. The old silent majority statement, that is the truth. I mean, I've seen it myself in my career where leaders in our community will say something and we'll have a conversation and you're almost having a dance on eggshells, because you don't really know if I'm going to say something. All of a sudden I'm accused of something horrible. And then you'll realize you're on the same page, which is basic fucking common sense, right? But you got to be careful, because that one nut job that's going to go dox you or try to cancel you, right, and destroy your life. And then I had multiple occasions, I'm never going to say who or even where, because it would really give it away, but where they'll like whisper like, yeah, but you can't say anything. And I'm like, and that's the fucking problem. We're leaders in this. And we're like these couple nut jobs over here we're like terrified of. And it's like, and we know what they're doing. It's all bullshit, but we're playing along in like a fucking fantasy world.
Here's what I always say about that, though. They don't have anything to lose. Fear of losing your stuff is more than it takes to fear to get up and tell the truth, right?
Right.
Because when you got more to lose, obviously you're a little bit more quiet about it. That's what happens, because nut job doesn't have to worry about somebody coming taking your shit. They ain't got nothing. Right. It's a real power struggle. I mean, we're seeing it play out right now. Here's another thing I want to do, counselor. I want to take you down this road. I saw this and I thought, ooh, I'm going to bring this up when we do this. So on Piers, is it Morgan? He's the British dude or whatever he is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's pretty much anti-gun, if you will. He doesn't care though if you have a gun, and he's actually not nearly as crazy about it as one might think. Like, he understands it. And so then you have Jesse Waters. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a conservative dude, right? And they had this mass shooting in Massachusetts, right? Maine. Yeah, and the guy's on the run still, right?
Yeah.
They brought up an interesting topic though, because Jesse Waters says guns don't kill people, people kill people.
Right.
Tell me what you make of that statement. True or false?
Oh, it's true. It's like fork doesn't make you fat, it's the decision to put the food in your mouth. But what I think is, and I'll tell you something else. You asked my top three. Ben Shapiro's one as well. I think that guy is just absolutely brilliant. But he had brought up a good point. And when this happened the other day, I actually went to my AI app, my Chat GPT, and I showed my kids. And I asked it, how many people were in mental institutions in 1962? And it was like 568,000 or something like that out of like 100 and whatever it was million citizens in this country. Now we're at 300 plus 350, whatever it is, million citizens. And we have purposely made an effort to not institutionalize people. This guy was in a institution in the summer. It's certainly a mental health issue. We got people pushing people in front of subway trains. We have no bail. Just let him back out. Third gun crime in one day. The fourth one, he shot somebody. Surprise, surprise. I mean, it's like the nut jobs are running the loony bin, right? It's like really what it is. But and I'm not trying to talk that say negatively towards. I got to be careful, right? Towards people that do have mental problems, but they need help.
Right.
They need help, and helping them is not letting them stay out there and hear voices and continue to feel like they are being told to go shoot people. One of the victim's fathers was actually on a article I was reading this morning where he said he actually has empathy and sympathizes for the guy. Like he can't find hate is what he said for the guy because he knows the story now.
Yeah.
You know, the system failed everybody there. It's not the friggin' gun that got up and shot somebody.
You're right. And that's logical thinking, right? But Pierce brought up an interesting point, and I don't think he's wrong either. He says, in this country, you've got so many guns, but you're not doing anything to get the guns out of the hands of people like this guy, right?
Right.
You can't argue against that either.
Right.
I mean, it's truth, right? And so what happens when both can be true?
Right. More common
but there's
sense
no
has to step
solution,
in.
right?
So I'll throw another one at you. So what he's talking about there, and I say this to our attorney general in Colorado. I was at an event with Phil, and he had given a speech, and I pulled him aside, and I was like, "Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you how you got a lot of people in here that are pro-gun. I can tell you that right now that you don't recognize maybe. He's a nice guy, and he actually thanked me for this, and I explained to him. I said the idea that we need to do this or do that, it's going to do nothing, and here's why. The reality is the background check. The background check is a fucking joke. How did the Orlando shooter, who's on an FBI watch list, clear a background check? Because as long as you're not a convicted felon, you give your license, they scan it, you pay the money for the actual thing. Within 5 minutes, you walk out with the weapon.
Yeah,
that's a background check. Like that's crazy. Like but on the other side of the coin, you have people talking about, oh, we'll take away all the guns. Do you think the criminals who are shooting people and murdering and robbing with them are going to give them up? Right. Are they registering them? Like I love this, like Chicago, the gun crime and all this. Like, they have the strictest gun laws, conservatives will say, and then the liberals will say, yeah, but that's because these other states don't. It's like, oh, so they're going across state lines, buying legal firearms in their own name, registering them, taking them back, and then murdering people. That's the problem. They're all stolen weapons, you schmuck. It's like, it's an illegal firearm trade. It's a black market. And it's like, so you think you're going to take away my rights to protect myself? I've had problems at my house recently, right? And you think you're going to take away my right to protect my family when I know the only ones that are going to be armed are the friggin' criminals. I mean, Sammy Gravano talked about that. He's like, I was a criminal. Trust me, that is not a good idea. He's like, I carried guns. I killed people. That is a terrible idea. It's like, yeah, that's common sense though. But like you said before, there's truth and then there's emotion. And how could you not see this stuff and be motivated by emotion? Right? And be motivated by, man, we got to do something. Yeah, we do. But just taking the gun away is not necessarily at all the answer. Right? They talk about magazine capacities. Some of these people, they don't, like what I was saying before about not knowing anything. I used to get in it with people when they'd be like, nobody needs an assault weapon that shoots 900 rounds a minute. And it's like, what do you think? It's a fucking Gatling gun? Like do you know what you're talking about? That. It's the same rifle as a hunting rifle. It just holds more magazines. It's one pull, And they're like, no one needs a machine gun. That's because they're illegal. We don't have machine guns, And then they're like, we just want to take away all semi-automatic weapons. And it's like, that's everything other than a single bolt action or a fucking muzzle loader. Like, basically, like, what do you realize? So my pistol, I can't have that. Oh, no, you can have that. That's a semi-automatic. You don't know what you're talking about. So it's hard because it's like, I'll tell you, that is one issue where I think you can spot a person who does not know what the fuck they're talking about almost immediately.
Yeah.
By that type of discussion. There's a video online. Side note, I find it funny. This guy who's clearly a pro-gun guy, he has an AR and he's talking about how it fires and how you clean it and you do, but he's giving the parts of the weapon all fake, ridiculous sounding names, right? As if, but they're just, it's just a funny video mocking that. Like, these people don't know what they're talking about.
No, it's true. And but it's logic, but then there's also truth behind it, right? And that's what gets interesting, and why I think you're going to be so good at this you've got to use common sense. You've got to use logic, and it has to actually make more sense than it doesn't. But each side has some truths.
Right.
And that's the hard part for people because they want to just shut down the opposing side, right?
Right.
But there is some truth in each one of those, and I thought that was really interesting yesterday, and that's why I kind of wanted to get your opinion on that. But I find that fascinating. So anyway, I'm glad that we had this. This tells me a whole lot about you. Well, anyway, thanks for coming on the show. You're gonna be fucking amazing at this shit. I mean, this is gonna be the best ever, dude. Yeah. Best ever.